Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're getting all of our Christmas cookies made. So let's go ahead and get started and I'll show you what we're making. Okay, so this first cookie that we're going to do here, these are some Pretzel Turtles, but I'm not going to put any pecans on these. All the cookies that I'm doing today are going to be completely nut-free. So we're just using some of these Snyder's of Hanover snaps here. These are little pretzel squares. And then I'm using some of these Kraft caramels to put on top. So these little guys right here, and I'll put one on top of each one of my little pretzel squares. I'll put this in the oven for about 12 minutes at 300 degrees or until all of our caramels have melted. Okay, our caramels are out of the oven. They're still slightly warm, so they're still a little bit pliable. So I'm just going to take a Hershey Kiss and put one right on top of each one of these caramels. So just press down on there, and then that should stick. And then we'll let these cool down completely. Okay, so the next cookie that we're going to work on is a shortbread cookie, and I'm going to cut these out into little Christmas trees. So in my mixing bowl here, I have 1 cup of powdered sugar, 2 cups of flour, 1 cup of butter that's softened, and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And after I get this mixed up into a ball, I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of green sprinkles too. So go ahead and mix this up on medium speed until your dough forms a ball. Okay, our dough has come together nicely. Now we can add our sprinkles and get those mixed in. So I'm just using these little green sprinkles here. This is just kind of like green sanding sugar. So I'll put that in. I'll get this mixed up real quick, and then we'll get this in the fridge to chill for about 15 minutes. Okay, all of our dough's mixed up here, looking good. I'm going to put this onto a piece of plastic wrap and get this covered and into the fridge. I'll let it sit in the fridge for about 15 minutes so our butter can get nice and cold, and it'll make it easier to cut out our little Christmas trees. So we'll see you guys in about 15 minutes. Okay, our dough is out of the oven. The butter has chilled, so now we're ready to go ahead and roll this out. So I'm using this little Christmas tree cookie cutter for my cookies here. So I'm going to try to roll these out to about 1/4 inch in thickness. And then we'll get these on our cookie sheet and bake these at 350 for about 10 to 12 minutes. Okay, we got about half of our batch of our little shortbread Christmas trees out now. These look good. I'm just going to let these cool for a few minutes before I take them off the pan. But other than that, these are our shortbread cookies, which are looking great, and they smell nice and buttery. Okay, now we can get working on our molasses cookies. So in my mixing bowl here, I have 1 3/4 cup of sugar and then 1 cup of vegetable oil. And I'll just go ahead and get this mixed real quick, then we'll add our eggs and molasses. Okay, now we can add in our molasses and eggs. So I'm using 1/3 cup of molasses here. I use the Brer Rabbit brand. I think that's the best brand to use. Jar looks like that. And then we'll get our egg in. Okay, we'll get this mixed up and then we'll add our dry ingredients. All right, so for our dry ingredients here, we have 3 cups of flour, 1 tablespoon of baking soda, and then 2 teaspoons of pumpkin pie spice. So these are actually really similar to like a gingerbread cookie, but you don't have to roll these out. So these are drop cookies. So I'll add about half of my flour mixture and get this mixed up, and then we'll add the other half. All right, here's our molasses cookie. We'll get these ready to roll out. Okay, we're ready to scoop out our molasses cookies here. I'm using a little cookie scoop, so everything's nice and uniform in the same size. So I'll just scoop these out into my hand, roll them into a ball. Then we're going to put them in a little bit of just regular sugar here. And then go ahead and drop them onto our parchment paper. Once we have a cookie sheet that opens up, I'll go ahead and get those put on there. Okay, we got most of our molasses cookies rolled out here. These are going to go into a 350-degree oven for 12 to 14 minutes. Okay, here's some of our molasses cookies out of the oven. These look good. These smell really, really good. So I got a few more that'll come out here in a minute or two. And yeah, these look good. These will taste really good too. So let's move on to the next cookie. All right, now we can move on to our sugar cookies. So these are actually going to be Grinch cookies. I'm going to turn these green and then decorate them a little bit. So this is my grandmother's sugar cookie recipe. So this is a really good one. So in our mixing bowl here, I have 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of powdered sugar, 1 cup of softened butter, and then 1 cup of vegetable oil. So I'll go ahead and cream these together, and then we'll add a few more ingredients. Okay, we got that creamed together. Now we can add 2 eggs and then a teaspoon of vanilla, and we'll mix this up real quick too. All right, so now we can add our dry ingredients. So I have 4 cups plus 4 tablespoons of flour, 1 teaspoon salt, 1 teaspoon baking soda, and then 1 teaspoon of cream of tartar. So I'll add this in increments to get everything mixed up here. All right, here's our cookie dough looking good. Since we're going to make these into Grinch cookies, I'm going to add a few drops of green food coloring here until we get kind of the green that we're going for. So we'll start off with that and see how that looks. Okay, here's our Grinch green cookie dough here. So again, I'll use my cookie scooper to scoop these out, and then I'm just going to take just a regular glass here, put this in a little bit of sugar, and then press that down on my cookie here to flatten these out a little bit. Okay, we got our Grinch cookies on our tray here. These are going to go into a 375-degree oven for about 8 to 10 minutes. Okay, so our Grinch cookies are out here. We have a few over there too. We still have some more in the oven. We'll let these cool down completely before we move on to the next thing, which is decorating these. Okay, so we got our Grinch cookies here on some wax paper. I'm going to heat up some of these lime green melting tabs in their microwave in about 30-second intervals until all of our chocolates have melted. And we're going to drizzle that on top of our cookies here, and then we're going to add some of these little red hearts on top of that. Okay, so we got our melting tabs all melted here, and if you feel like your chocolate is a little bit on the thick side, you can go ahead and add a little spritz of vegetable oil to this, or even coconut oil, to kind of thin this out a little bit. But you can't use anything like milk or water because that'll make your chocolate seize up and separate. So you have to use a type of fat to do this. So this looks pretty good. So now we can go ahead and start decorating. Okay, so I think the easiest thing to do here is just kind of take a little forkful and kind of from up high, just kind of flick the chocolate on all your cookies here. You can kind of do whatever pattern you want. Remember, the Grinch is a messy guy, so this doesn't need to be exact or perfect by any means. All right, so I'll keep working on this, and then we'll put our little red hearts on. Okay, now while your cookies are still drying, go ahead and put one of these little wafer hearts on your cookies here. So I'll just put one kind of over on the side, just like that. So I'll do that to all the rest of these here. Okay, so our Grinch hearts are drying here. I think these look pretty good. We'll let these dry, and these will look really good. So we'll move on to the next thing. Okay, so we'll move on to our next cookie here. We're just doing some plain chocolate chips. I'm using the King Arthur flour chocolate chip cookie recipe because I think that is the best one that I have found so far. And so in my big mixing bowl here, I have 2/3 cup of brown sugar, 2/3 of a cup of white sugar, half a cup of softened butter, half a cup of shortening, 3 teaspoons of salt, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, 1 teaspoon of cider vinegar, which is kind of like the secret ingredient to this, and then 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 egg. So I'll mix this all up, then we'll get our dry ingredients added. All right, so here's what our cookie dough looks like so far. Now we can add 2 cups of flour to this. I'll get this mixed up, and then we can add our chocolate chips. Okay, now we can add in a 12-ounce bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. So that's the whole bag there, and we'll get that mixed up, and then we'll get these scooped out. Okay, we got our chocolate chip cookies scooped out here. These will go into a 375-degree oven for 11 to 12 minutes. All right, so for our next cookie here, we're going to do some peppermint meringues. So I have 4 egg whites here. These are at room temperature. Make sure you don't have even 1 bit of yolk in your egg white. That'll prevent your peaks, or for your eggs from fluffing up. So just make sure you don't have any yolk in your egg whites. So to that, we're going to add a 1/4 teaspoon cream of tartar, and then a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm going to use my whisk attachment here to go ahead and whip these up to some soft peaks. So that'll take a few minutes here. Okay, so we have some frothy peaks here for our egg whites. So now I'm going to add in 1 cup of sugar at about 1 tablespoon at a time, gradually, until we get some really light, soft, fluffy peaks here for our meringue. Okay, our meringue is all done. We got some nice glossy peaks here. The best way to tell if your meringue is done is just take, with your clean hands, take just a little dab right there and then rub it between your fingers like that. And if you don't feel any sugary grit, then you're good to go. So let me get myself cleaned up here, and then we'll get these ready for the cookie sheet. Okay, so we're just going to take 2 spoons here and just do little dollops onto our cookie sheet, kind of like that. And these are lined with parchment paper here. And this is probably the best thing to use. So I'll get all of these put on here, and then we'll top these with some candy canes. Okay, so I just have 4 candy canes here in this Ziploc bag. I'm going to whack them really good with my rolling pin here, and then I'll sprinkle them on top of my meringues. Okay, so we'll just do a bit of a sprinkle on top of all these here. And these will go into a 225-degree oven for about an hour. And after they're done baking, we're actually going to let them stay in the oven to cool down completely. So once our timer goes off, I'll turn the oven off and just open the oven door just a hair to let some of that warm air escape. And by doing that, we're going to make sure that our meringues won't completely flatten once we take them out of the oven. So we'll do that, and then our cookie making should be pretty much done. Okay, the timer just went off for our meringues. I had these in here for an hour and a half. I misspoke last time when I said they'd go in for an hour. These were in for 90 minutes. So now go ahead and turn off your oven, and then just crack the door open like that. And you can kind of see them right down in there. And we're going to let our oven cool down completely before we take these out. So don't touch them, and don't take these out until the oven is cool to the touch. Okay, our peppermint meringues are out of the oven now. These look good. I let them cool down completely in the oven. So these are nice and light and airy and fluffy. So we'll get these on our platter. Okay, here's our platter of cookies. So we got our peppermint meringues, our Grinch sugar cookies, we got our chocolate chip cookies, molasses cookies, our shortbread Christmas trees, and then our pretzel turtles down there. So These are going to my kids' school tomorrow. We have some for my daughter's preschool, and then my son's kindergarten teachers are going to get those. So these look really good. These weren't too tough to make. I'll put the recipes down in the description for you guys to check out. And I hope you guys like these as much as we do. So, Merry Christmas.